ARE Podcast, episode number 18.
Welcome to the ARE Podcast. Where it's all about encouraging and inspiring you today so you can fulfill your dream of becoming a licensed architect tomorrow. And now your host. He enjoys hiking while listening to the Fountainhead, David Doucette.
Hello, and welcome back to episode number 18 of the ARE Podcast. We have a great show for you today, and Eric is joining us as always. And where are you today?
Today I'm in the beautiful Salt Lake City.
You said it's very dry there.
It's very dry. very, very dry. It's actually kind of snowing a little bit. It's very pretty, but it's my cuticles are terrible and my lips hurt, and so I'm really grumpy. Basically, no, I'm fine. But it's very pretty here. You're spoiled by all that rain in Portland. Yeah, I am. Jealous?
We're going to get some. It's going to be big El Nino this year. Lots of snowboarding. So really great topic today. We're going to talk about the DISC profile, and we're going to talk about your personality, and we're going to talk about how understanding your personality can help you in two ways related to the ARE. The first one is in how you prepare for the exam, and the second one is when you're actually sitting in front of the computer, actually taking the exam. So if you have an understanding of your personality, it will help you. Unfortunately, we can't change a personality. It kind of just is what it is, but once we understand it, we can better use it to our advantage. So what we're using is the DISC personality profile. It's DISC. I was first turned on to this probably 7 or 8 years ago when I got into real estate. And there's a couple other personality, programs out there, but it seems to be DISC is the most popular one. And I'm going to put a link in the show notes, but you can get a free one from TonyRobbins.com. Head over to TonyRobbins.com, click on resources, and click on the personality profile, and you can take a free one there. It's 10 minutes. It actually gives you your DISC profile and also your values index, and we'll talk about the values index on an upcoming show because that one's actually equally as fascinating. So for this one, the DISC profile, excited to do this because, you know, we start to understand our own personalities, and then we can date. Oh, that's the wrong show. That's eHarmony, right?
That's a different show. Did you fill out the right questionnaire when you prepared for the show, or did you? Were there questions about a long walk on the beach or anything, or did you?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I got that confused with eHarmony. All right, so I guess the first thing we'll do here is go ahead and take your report or do your report. I think it takes about 10 minutes at TonyRobbins.com. Then you'll have a better understanding of what we're talking about. But the DISC profile, there's the DI and the SC, DISC. Now, Eric, you actually you took a profile as a different one, Briggs and Stratton. Those are motors.
Well, I took the DISC profile and then have my report, which it's kind of eerie how dead on accurate it is about me, because it even it gets into how your work habits are, how you like to have meetings, your different personality strengths and your weaknesses, and it's a little scary so it's worth doing just to learn about yourself. But at our office, we also are very big on the Myers-Briggs thing, which is very similar, has 4 classic personality types. And we try to use it to understand how to work better with each other. So this DISC profile is a great way to not only learn about yourself, but learn about your coworkers. And if you could almost find a way to share everybody's results with one another, I think it would also help solve some of those personality bumps that tend to happen in an office where one person drives you crazy because they're never hitting their deadlines. And it can help you better understand how to communicate to them and how to work more closely with them.
Yeah, that's a good point. As we dive into the understanding of what a D is and what an I is and what an S and a C is, you'll realize you can't have a full team of Ds, for example, because they'll all just be butting heads, and you can't have a full team of Cs because then nothing will get done. They'll just overanalyze. So it is that balance. So I could see how it's very valuable for team mechanics, and I think probably I would imagine a lot of businesses.
I'm sorry.
Run profiles on their employees, I guess.
Hold on.
No cleaning?
You already cleaned?
Clean?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Is that your housekeeper?
My God. I'm in a hotel. But they already cleaned the room, and the do not disturb sign was on the door. So I'm sorry.
Maybe you hung the wrong one.
Yeah, I added, please disturb.
All right, so let's get into what each of these are first, so we can have an understanding, so we know what the heck we're talking about. So the first one is the D, and that is known as the decisive. So D for decisive. I've also heard it referred to as the driver. So somebody who likes to take control, and in the Tony Robbins, they describe it. The keyword is problems and how you tend to approach problems and make decisions. So if you're a high D, I have the 6 words that sort of describe a high D. The first one is demanding, driving, forceful, daring, determined, and competitive. So those are all characteristics of a high D. Now, I should mention, when you do this profile, you're going to have or at least you should have if you're human, all 4 personalities will show up in your profile, but I think 2 will tend to be the stronger ones, and then 2 less not. So it'll be a combination of of a D and I, for example, which is what I am. Were you a DI?
Yeah, I was, but I'm not a high D in that I'm not all the way at the top because I'm not competitive.
Right.
So I fall short of that, and but what's interesting about it is if you think about it, if you're competitive, it would change how you'd study for the IRE. You'd probably do it with a buddy, if not a group, and you'd probably want to test each other and know that you're crushing it against other people.
You're jumping ahead a little bit, but
sorry.
The D actually probably won't want to be in a study group. He or she won't have the patience for it, right? Because you just got to get things done. The I, which leads to our next one, is interactive, and this is the one that's concerned about people and how you tend to interact and share opinions. So I is kind of, I would say, the most social one. So if you're a high I, characteristics include gregarious, persuasive, inspiring, enthusiastic, sociable, and poised. So the I is the one I think who's going to want to be in a study group, interact with people on the forums, kind of make it a bit of an event, I guess.
This was my highest, tick on the chart, which I kind of agree with. But it also means that sometimes a high I would be more interested in getting consensus or getting everybody to enjoy the process or getting everybody to like them, rather than focusing on actually studying and getting things done.
Yeah, exactly. The I can definitely be more of the social person. Hey, let's just socialize and hang out and have a good time.
Right.
So yeah, the D and the I are the extroverts. Now let's move into, I guess, what we consider the 2 introverts, the S and the C. So the S we call stabilizing. And this is concerned, if you're an S or a high S, you're concerned about pace. So how you tend to pace things in your environment. So if you're a high S, words like patient, predictable, passive, complacent, stable, and consistent. Those are words that fit with the S personality type. And then finally, let's go to C, and then we can bring this back. Now, C is cautious. So the C is concerned with procedures. So you have a preference for established protocol and standards. So C's like to follow the rules. C's like to know rules are in place, and they'll follow them. So words for a high C would be cautious, perfectionist, systematic, careful, analytical, and orderly. So the C's like things done a certain way. So as I mentioned a little bit ago, if you had a bunch of D's on the team, they're all going to butt heads with each other because they're all going to want to do it their way. And if you have a bunch of C's on the team, everybody's just going to sit around and overanalyze, and nobody's going to make a decision to move forward. So it is a combination of the D's and the C's and the I's and the S's. You kind of need all four of those personality types, I would think, on your team to be successful.
To balance it out, you've probably all seen people that fit these categories, or maybe you're kind of seeing some of this in yourself. But a stabilizing person, a high S person who's very patient, very consistent, they're the ones that they have a study time. They study at this time every single day, no matter come hell or high water. This is what they do, even if they don't want to. Their diligence is kind of impressive. A high C would be the one that's taking the practice exams and not wanting to stop until they've gotten them all right. Would be like tracking their progress. How much did they study? How many questions did they get wrong this day? They're very systematic. They're very analytical, and they're orderly, almost to a fault. And what's funny is, in I'm sure David, you've seen this too. In our dealings with candidates, when they email us or ask us questions, you can almost tell what personality types they are by what they're worried about. By what their fear is, because they're the ones. Is this going to be on the exam? Is it going to be this way? Is it going? And my personality tends to be more of just go with it, just whatever comes your way, just understand the concept, and no matter what the question, you'll be able to answer it. But for certain people, they want to know that it's going to be a certain way, and they want to come in prepared, just for that one very analytical, very orderly process.
Yeah, that's a great point. And let's take, for example, NCARB, for example, and this process, right, of obtaining our license and taking these vignettes and basically the hurdles we need to get across to complete our goal. A D and an I are typically just going to accept the challenge and just move forward and accept it is what it is. There's these sort of crazy rules. These vignettes don't have anything to do with architecture, but that's the goal. Like, we're just going to dive in and we're going to move forward. Where the S's and the C's will tend to be the ones who might complain about how the process is unfair. The S and the C's, they tend to use words like I feel like this isn't fair, or I feel this isn't set up the right way, or I feel NCARB has something out for me. And, of these four personality types, neither of them is bad. Neither of them is good per se. It's just a matter of understanding the way you fit in. And we have all four. We're just not like a high D or a high I. We have all four. It's just where do we tend in our personalities of where are we highest?
Yeah, we're all a little bit of each one. Mine. I'm high across all four, but really high on the I, which makes me very outgoing. But so I'm more of the type that I'd want to dive in. I'd want to get a study group going. I'd want to see what I'm up against, kind of thing. So I'd want to just start to look at all the material, and I'd want to get it over with, quite frankly. Which, oddly enough, that's what I did with the IRE, right? Every 2 weeks, let's just do it. If I fail one, I'll take it again. Let's just go. Was kind of my attitude, whereas you were on the 18-year plan. How long did it take?
7 years. Yeah, so that was I don't know what personality type that was.
That's a little bit of a C, I think.
A little bit of a C bleeding in there.
But the C who's overly cautious would probably take a while to sign up for the test. Wouldn't want to do it until they knew they were prepared first. They'd probably want to talk to a bunch of friends that have gone through it. And this is who the 5-year rolling clock, I feel, is for. Those guys.
I would agree with that. And so let's jump into that. Now we have an understanding of the D is the driver, the I is the interactive, the S is stabilizing, and the C is cautious. Let's talk about each one of these in relation to just preparing for the exam. So not taking the exam yet, we're just getting ready. So if we start with the D, what is the D going to tend to do, Eric?
Well, the D is going to want to just dive in as well, because, again, D and I are more extroverted. and they're gonna want to plow through everything, right? They're gonna want to know what are the categories. They'll probably take several tests at once, or at least book them at once, and they're going to want to go do it. By the way, risking that they might fail or go in unprepared, which happens. So if you know you're a high D, perhaps you should compensate a little bit by trying to prepare. Still follow your tendency to plow through the material, but also accept the fact that maybe that means that you need to study a little more in anticipation of this, and balance it out.
Yeah, don't underestimate the tasks. The D can be very what's so hard? It's multiple choice and vignettes.
Yeah. How hard could it be?
I think also too the D and the I would tend to, in terms of their material, they probably tend to purchase a bunch of different material or gather a bunch of different material, and try and use it as much as they can. Whereas the S and the C may overanalyze, okay, who's got the best material, what's the best, and it becomes a task in and of itself of which material they're going to purchase, and that gets into the overanalyzing thing.
The much more introverted people who are high C or high S, they aren't only going to overanalyze the exam; they're going to overanalyze the study materials.
Exactly.
They're going to want to pick one study material and make sure it's right. They're the questions that we get saying, are your materials the right ones? Are you the ones that I should invest in?
That's
right?
Exactly it.
And of course, our answer is yes. Ours are the right ones. But the truth is,
that's not how I answer. But
that's how I answer. But that's but knowing that you're maybe more introspective, and knowing that it's, in one sense, it's great because you're gonna plan the work and then work the plan. You're just going to keep doing that over and over again. Knowing you're like that, maybe it's also where you have to maybe set some push goals for yourself to get it done by blank.
Yes.
And I'm a big fan of setting time-based goals. You don't have to be nuts and I'm going to take a test every week, right? But maybe it's tied to financial. Maybe it's expensive. Maybe it's I want to do one a month. I like the one a month idea, but maybe it's one every 2 months. It almost doesn't matter. But knowing that you'd have a tendency to be introspective, to analyze, and take a while to commit, maybe the best thing for you to do would be to just set deadlines for yourself to do it, and that would also carry through to your work. By the way,
I think setting deadlines, and I think writing goals down, as we talked about before, and we did a podcast a while back about goal setting. That's actually one of our most popular podcasts. So that's great. So people are taking this goal setting seriously. But if you think about it, we all should be writing our goals down. But the D doesn't necessarily, it's not as important for the D because the D is just going to get it done anyway. The D will find a way to do it. But the S and the C definitely need to write it down. So then that's their accountability. That's how they can stay on track, because otherwise they may not they may not stay on track.
So I just moved to a new state, and I had to take the driver's test. And so I did essentially the same thing a D or an I would do. I just signed up I just went into the DMV and took the test. I didn't study.
Right.
I figured, let me take it and see how it is first before I study. Because I almost didn't want to waste time studying if I could just pass by dumb sheer luck. And of course, I failed the first time. I took it. It was a really hard test.
Right.
So then I studied, but in my mind, I knew what to study and what was important and what wasn't. And then next time went through and just did it.
You didn't? Don't they give you like 3 chances or something right there? Like
no,
in
Oregon,
wow.
You got to come back.
You do. You had to come back. So you had to walk out of there with your tail between your legs.
Walk out, with a lot of people's tail between, but I'd walk out and then come back. But, to me, that was like studying for the exam. I'd rather almost just dive into the material and get through it and see what it's like and take it again. And luckily that's free, unlike the ARE, right?
Yeah, and that's, that has been my big mantra the last several years. I've been teaching both the architects who want to get licensed in California and now with the ARE, is just do it. I used to be preaching, practice, 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 or prepare, prepare, prepare. So you kind of pass the first time. Now I don't care about that. Now I just want you to take it and get into the game, because if you start taking it and you're in the game, you're eventually going to pass it at some point. But if you're not taking it, then obviously you have no chance of passing it. And still to this day, people who take the California supplemental exam buy my materials a year and a half ago and send me emails. Hey, is there any updates? I haven't taken the exam yet. So you just got to take it.
It's funny because we get these amazing emails from people that, oh, I passed, and you could feel the weight off their shoulders. You could feel their enthusiasm. You can almost feel the gratitude coming through, like, thank you, even though they did all the work and they're the ones who took the test. But we get these great emails, but then we also get these emails from people that are, well, I haven't signed up for the test yet. I'm still thinking about it. I'm looking at materials, looking at options, and I kind of just want to kick them in the butt and go, just do it already. Especially because the ARE, the process of studying, makes you a better architect, right? I mean, I remember at the time I hadn't worked on a lot of foundation stuff. I had all my projects had the same foundation, but studying all of that stuff for BDCS was, made me a better designer, made me a better thinker, better analyzer of the design. So the idea that you're putting it off because you want to make sure that all your ducks are in a row, it gets to be a little silly after a while.
And you brought up a good point about the process of the ARE and making you a better architect. There's a lot of valuable knowledge to be gained by going through this ARE process. And I think the I's, the enthusiastic ones, right, embrace that challenge and they'll learn a lot. But if you want to complain about the process and say this really stinks, why am I doing this? Why isn't NCARB counting my credits? Why, if you keep having pity on yourself, you're going to miss sort of the opportunity of all this knowledge you're going to gain by studying. I mean, there is relevant, great material and information that NCARB is requiring us to be familiar with.
It's funny. I have a friend in particular I'm thinking of, but I have several friends like this they've been working 15, 20 years in the industry. They're guys that I would call, if I had a technical question, they know it all thoroughly, and they still haven't taken all their exams, and their rolling clock has bitten them in the butt a few times, right? Where they've, I have one friend, he's taken SPD 3 times, I think, so far, because the rolling clock.
Right, exactly.
It's a little crazy, but also I got mad that he wasn't taking it. Just do it already. And finally we're having dinner and we're talking about it. And he finally admitted, he said, I'm afraid to find out if I'm an idiot. I'm afraid to take the test.
Yeah.
And discover that I don't know as much, because he prided himself on being the guy that knew everything in the office. He was amazing with field reports and amazing with technical stuff and working drawings, and got permit sets with no comments, and he was just great at that. But he was afraid to find out that maybe he's not as great as he thought he was.
Right. And you know what that is?
What?
Well, the one word, 3 letters.
ASS?
No. Begins with E, ends with O.
Oh, yeah, ego. Yeah.
Ego, right? I mean, that's our ego, right? And we as architects, I think most architects have a healthy ego,
No, I don't know. I've never heard that before.
Right, because you have no ego.
It's funny how we rationalize fear in such a way, and I think more of an introverted person, and I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying more of an introverted person who would be on the more overly analytical side, with the reluctance to commit to taking the exams, would be the one that would help. They would rationalize their fear more. But again, knowing that this is your personality type, take this. It's free. Take it. Take this profile. See if you find out anything about yourself, and then see if that helps you then alter your plan for how you prepare for the exam. Exactly.
Because we're not going to change your personality. I mean, it's there. It's just like, okay, how can I use it? And what's interesting is if you understand your personality better, you may be able to get a better job that suits you. If you have a better understanding, it's like, oh, okay, this is how I am. The current job I'm working in, that doesn't really fit. Like, maybe this is why I'm not happy. I need to find something else where I can be more of an I, or more of an S, or more of a C. We need all 4 of those personality types on a project team. They're all valuable.
Yes.
All right, so preparing for the exam. So we know the D's they're just going to dive into the material. Tendency to plow through. So as you mentioned before, kind of just slow down, really, go through the material. The I's are also going to dive in, looking for the study group, maybe losing a little focus with making it a social event. The S's are probably the ones, if I was going to say it, pick one to be most balanced, would probably be the most balanced approach to this. They're the ones who are going to develop a plan and they're going to work their plan. And as you mentioned earlier, they're the ones who are going to study their couple hours every day. They're the ones who are going to be diligent and just stick to their regimen.
I bet Aubrey, our other partner, I think she's a hard S.
I would say so too. She's not here to defend herself, but
so let's just say she's an S.
Let's just say she's an S. That's a really good point. And it's almost like if I'm just thinking of a team and you're building a team, an S is a very important part of that. Especially if you're a D, you need the S because somebody's got to control you. Somebody's got to keep you in check. And S and C's, those are professions. Accountants, lawyers, give or take. But those sort of very analytical, professions dealing with numbers, accounts, that all kind of stuff. Right. And then the C, overanalyzing, taking a while to commit. Doing research on all the exam prep materials that are out there. That's a 2-month project before they actually decide to purchase something.
Yeah. Which flashcards should I buy? Just get
something. Yeah.
Just get something and start studying.
Just get in the game. And as a result, they're the ones that could potentially put off the exam or delay. And that is probably when I first started taking the exam in 98. I didn't pass programming because I didn't study for it because I thought I knew everything. And then I just didn't do anything for a few years. So that was probably more of a C, at that time, just sort of like, not even analysis paralysis. I don't know what was going on then. I was in my late 20s. What can I say?
Yeah, you were a mess.
I was in New York. I was good otherwise. So that's preparing for the exam. So now we have a better understanding of that. We have a better understanding of now our own personality and how it fits into preparing for the exam. Now let's go into actually taking the exam. We show up at the test center. We're sitting in front of the computer. Let's see how these personality types are going to play out here. So what's up for the D?
Well, the D, remember, the D is the decisive one, but this can backfire, right? A high D might rush through the questions, and in rushing might start missing some of the easy ones or missing some of the, not reading it carefully enough. Or worse, they might not take the time to figure out any of the tricky ones. Even ones that they know are tricky, they might get, they're like, that's it, let's go, let's keep moving forward. I mean, I suffer from this myself. But if you know that you're like this, if this DISC profile shows that you're a high D, maybe you know that going in. So while you're taking the exam, don't rush. One of the things that we did, especially with the vignettes, but even with the study guide, is we kind of told you when you have enough time to look at something and when you don't. There's certain vignettes where you don't have the time and you got to kind of lay it all out. But others where they almost give you too much, I thought. So don't rush. Don't rush. If you're a high D, don't rush knowing that it's kind of your Achilles heel.
And then what do we have for the I's?
Remember, the I's are more interactive, and so the test is very insular. And so without anybody around them and with no feedback or no stimulus other than a computer screen, the challenge for them is to stay calm. Right? Because they're gonna get fidgety. It might cause them to rush, but it also might cause them to miss something and not focus. The hard part would be they're almost a little ADD. I mean, and again, I suffer from this. But getting them just to stay focused and relax and breathe through it and think it through using this. I'm a big fan of using the scratch paper. Use the scratch paper. Use this to bounce it off yourself. For some people, just talking kind of like this, just to yourself, helps you see it through. Reading the program out loud, just whispering it to me, it really helped me. So that's kind of a good tip.
What I like about the D's and the I's here is I have confidence they're gonna get through that exam that day. They're not going to be worrying about if it's too hot or too cold. They're not going to be worried about the noise in the room. They're not going to be worried about the lighting. They're not going to be worried if there's dust all over all over on their work surface. They're just going to go in and they're going to do their job. And that's what I like.
We've heard stories. We've heard stories. People have sent us. Well, the testing center was very crowded and it was very hot, and they didn't let me bring my lunch in. And a strong I would be like, let's just do this. Let's just go. Let's get in and get out. The sooner we go, the sooner we can leave. That's going to be. I mean, that's B basically, but that's going to be a strong I.
Yeah. So the S's taking the exam. I think the S's are probably. I feel like would be the most solid in this atmosphere, assuming everything was in order. Assuming the lighting was correct, assuming the temperature is correct, that kind of thing.
Right. S is for stabilizing. So for them, they're looking for consistency, and they will apply order and consistency if none is to be there. The S's are going to be the ones that are going to be mapping out on their scratch paper, okay, I've got 140 questions in this much time. How much time is that per question? Those are those guys. The trouble is in doing that, in spending that time preparing and how to pace it, they might end up wasting some of their time. Or worse, if something in the testing center isn't quite right, there's glare on the screen, or the chair is squeaky, that could be enough to throw something off if it's different than what they anticipated or expected.
Yeah, but to that point, I also think the S could probably work the most efficiently. It's almost like if for just thinking of this exam, it's almost like if I was going to pick an ideal type, like the S would be like if I was going to bet on somebody taking exams, I want to send the S in. You know.
The S is going to get through all the questions. They're not going to miss any.
Right.
They're not going to make dumb mistakes, especially on the vignette, but even on the multiple choice. They're the ones that are going to be. I mean, they're that's the beauty of it, the stability of a strong S. But knowing that too, they could get distracted if the questions aren't exactly as they studied or anticipated. They're the ones that end up saying to us, these weren't on the sample exam.
Right. Right.
Why weren't these on the sample exam?
Yeah, less ability to sort of roll with it, where the D's and the I's can sort of roll with it to a fault, but can more apt to roll with it. Yeah, the S's, they want it a certain way because that's their plan. And I mean, I have that too. Like when
you got that big time.
not big time. Let's see, what was I on S? Where'd I go? Where's my profile? My S and my C were the same at 46. My D was 56, I was 81, and my S and my C were both 46.
Oh wow.
So then now the C taking the exam, the C, if I was a betting person, the C would probably be the one I would be most concerned with, on actually a few different levels. Number one is much like the S. The atmosphere has to be perfect. The temperature has to be right. The lighting has to be right. The workspace has to be clean, which we all want that. But
by the way, it's not going to be.
No, and it's not going to be.
Those testing centers are pretty, ugly spaces. And
earplugs, and they have all that to deal with that. So the S can get thrown by that, but then in the middle of the exam, the C is the one probably most prone to be thrown by questions they weren't prepared for, or by questions they don't understand. I think they're the ones that can now get into their head and be like, "Oh my God, I didn't study this. I'm a terrible person. I don't know what I'm doing." That's a C.
They're perfectionists, right?
Yes,
and they're very cautious and analytical. So a C is also the one that, when they get those pernicious multiple choice questions where it says, is the answer A, 45, B, whatever. And then they have those D, A and B, or E,
right.
A and B and C, or all of the above. Those really pernicious, like naughty, terrible, evil multiple choice questions that they're the ones that they're overanalyzing it and they're overthinking it. And then we get those emails from people too with the questions that I read this in the study guide, but then I saw this thing. You said 45, and here it said 45.1. Which is it?
Right.
Well, it's the same. It's
Right.
basically the same.
I just thought of talking about this now, and I teach this with the California supplemental exam, but really the most important, after we've done all the preparing, after we've done all of that, on exam day, the most important thing we can have is confidence. Because if we're confident, we can get through, the testing center being dirty. We can get through a loud testing center. We can get through a noisy, loud, noisy, same thing. We can get through questions that we have no idea what they're asking, but I'm confident. So my brain, okay, let me just try and figure it out. I can try and figure that out.
Yeah, that's how I magically passed structures when I thought, I'm not going to try to do the math. I'm just going to try to I understand the principles and the concepts. The math is a block for me. I'm just going to rush through it and just really try to if they're asking what's this chord on this truss, I'm going to just stay away from the math and hope for the best. But it was with a very confident, like, I'm going to do this. I'm visualizing success.
Yeah, and that's not a math heavy based exam. So when we're talking about confidence in our 4 profiles, for me, I'm thinking C is the one I would be most worried about, because if there's going to be sort of a less confident personality type, it's going to be the C, because the D and the I are just going to roll with it. The S will have confidence, assuming everything is sort of goes as planned. But I think the C is the one that tends to have trouble rolling with it, or have trouble with, oh my God, I didn't study this. Where the D and the I will just like, oh, I didn't study this, but let me see. Well, they're talking about this and it means this. Okay, here's my answers. So this one sounds, because the answer's in front of us. So it's like, okay, that sounds like, well, that makes sense. But the C could just get all in their head and not even just get in their head.
The C's are the ones that have trouble ordering at a restaurant. Like, I don't know, I don't know what to pick. And, at a restaurant with your friends, or, it might be cute, but in the exam, it could be deadly, because it could really eat up your time to finish, especially the multiple choice.
That's funny. And now that I'm just thinking it, so I wonder if we take the ordering at a restaurant analogy, the type, and this is not me, but the type who always has to order off the menu, that has to be a D, right? Because they want things their way. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably a D.
Probably a D.
The interactive would be more of the.
What's your soup of the day?
No, it would be more like, I'm going to order something that I can't get at home, or I'm going to try something I've never tried before. I always get that on the menu. I'm going to get something new.
Yeah, but the I is also going to want to talk to the waitress or waiter about what do they recommend, or what probably. Wine goes with this. They're going to want to have a conversation about it.
Right.
It's an experience for them. All right, cool. We covered a lot. So we got our D, the decisive, I, interactive, S, stabilizing, C, cautious. Anything you want to add to this?
I would say, obviously it's hard to reduce any complex person or personality into 4 letters, right? I just want to kind of give a caveat that we're all more than just 4 little letters, but I think by understanding these generalizations about ourselves, because the personality profile resource, the report, is quite helpful in that. And knowing that and admitting to ourselves, you know what, I am going to be the type that's going to rush in and not study or come in unprepared, or I am the type that's going to overanalyze the questions and have trouble picking, making a firm decision on a multiple choice one. I'm probably going to mark a bunch that I'm going to go back to. By knowing that going in, I think it'll certainly help you prepare for the exam and how to study, and also help you in the day of the exam and taking it. And but we know that you're all unique, wonderful snowflakes. So I don't want to say that this is the end all be all of existence here. It's just, to me, it was a very great guideline of really prepping of how you should think about the ARE and your approach to it.
And I think it's fairly accurate. Like you said, you felt yours was pretty spot on. I felt mine was pretty spot on. And it's we take it with a grain of salt. It's certainly more than a horoscope, although I like horoscopes. But it's interesting if we can just step back and look at it and be like, oh, yeah, I guess that is how I am.
Yeah, this, unlike a horoscope, and I won't say either way about a horoscope, but unlike a horoscope, which is based on the day you're born and the date, the question. I loved the questions. They the process of filling out the form to get the report. The questions were very interesting in and of themselves, and so much so that anybody that we hire now, I want to have them do this DISC profile.
Yeah, I was wondering that. I wonder if that could be a requirement for employee to become an employee. Like, can you make somebody do a DISC profile? Like, I don't know if there's some federal employment law that you can't. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess they could say no, but I'm gonna ask them to do it.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. I think that's actually a great idea from let's say me, the employee, looking for a job. I have a much better chance of finding a job that suits me if my potential employer has a better sense of my personality, right? That only makes sense. And the employer could look at it and say, you know what, that's not the kind of position we have here. Or they can say, oh, you know what, I got a perfect job for you. Like that would be helpful.
Yeah, you're going to be running blueprints in a windowless room all summer. That's basically it's a perfect job for you.
Perfect job for a high D, right?
Yeah, you're going to be in the basement cleaning out the archives.
The I will be enthusiastic as long as I got someone to talk to down there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, that's gonna wrap it up for today. Great show, and also in the comments, and I'll put all the links and everything in the show notes. But in the comments, go ahead, do your personality, and let us know what your high marks are. And I look forward to finding out the personalities of more of our listeners.
Thanks for listening to the ARE Podcast. Be sure to visit architectexamprep.com and check out our other podcast episodes, video tips, and the ARE blog. Remember to plan,